today's topic, something that I just decided needed to be done today, and I want to talk about e-mountain bikes, specifically this one, Project E, a mountain bike that I built. I'm going to go over what it was at the base and also some unique things about e-mountain bikes, because there are extra requirements when it comes to maintenance. And not only that, just from a bike perspective, adjustments that will have to be made on an e-mountain bike, especially one with a high torque motor, that you just don't have to do as often on a standard bike. So you have standard bike maintenance stuff, and then you have more stuff that has to be done on an e-mountain bike, especially the high torque mid-drive motors, mid-drive high torque, torque drive motors. A lot of words, but all of them apply. So let's get into this. And first I'm going to start out with what Project E is. A lot of people have asked me this question. Well, this started out, just boot it up here and show you. This was a Denago. This was a Denago EXC2, their high-end torque mid-drive mountain bike. I think $27.99 or $26.99 was the price I last saw. And it's a good platform. You can see I've done some stuff to it. I put a bunch of custom components on this, but also they're factory parts on this bike. These bars are factory. These brakes are factory. Even the rotors are factory, though I have had to adjust them a couple of times. I did upgrade the fork, upgraded the grips. Most recently, I upgraded this with the new wireless derailleur setup. But all of this, aside from the grips, is factory. This frame, the battery that's in these, I'll put on your screen the actual size of this battery. It's huge and will power this thing for a long time. 95 Newton meters on this Bafang M510 motor. That this frame, as far as I understand it, was the first, and this was one of the first that came into the country that were built exclusively for this motor. And the wheels, these are also the factory wheels, though I did upgrade the tires here with Schwalbe knobby nicks. I think I'm going to convert the front to a Magic Mary, because these knobby nicks, while they do great on my standard mountain bikes, on this thing, going faster, about 5-6 miles per hour faster wherever I'm at on the trail, definitely on climbs, it's a lot faster. But they get a little squirrelier than I've ever had them on any other bike. So I think I'm going to go with the Magic Mary here up front. It's what I figure I'll settle into, but I'll keep this one on the back. So anyway, oh, and chain guide, that's another thing I had to do with this bike. It kept dropping the chain up front, and I mean wedging in there so much that it loosened that nut. I had to put a chain guide on this. I don't know about the price that I saw them at most recently as far as versus other stuff, because earlier today I was shopping around for a specific reason that we're about to get into, and I had a Polygon T6E in my cart that cost about the same as this. And I tell you, the T6E, other than the motor, this motor will beat the motor on the T6E, but the rest of the components were like, I've added this fork, works great with this bike. The factory fork was a Sun Tour, but enough to get going with the bike. So anyway, that's enough about the bike as far as what it was. Answered some questions there. And you can just watch my videos. I'll link down in the description, my Project E video, where you can see all the modifications that I've made. And that gets us to the point where I want to talk about e-mountain bikes and specific maintenance requirements that these have that are different than a standard bike. These, I check them regularly, but often you just don't have to torque these down. I will say, hadn't had to torque these down, but I have had to adjust the headset tension way more than I have on any other bike. Now this is the factory headset in here. I could probably upgrade this, but usually you just don't have to check that often. But I've had to do it here regularly, because this just, I guess it's so much stress. People talk about the weight. I've talked about the weight of an e-mountain bike and how that adds to the strain on the frame. Some people contest that, but I can tell you there's a difference between an extra 20 or 30 pounds being on a frame and an extra 20 or 30 pounds being on the rider that is on the frame. This is dead weight. Dead weight is always more stressing. And also it's just stressing on the frame. That's a big heavy battery in here. There's a heavy motor down there. When it comes to stopping, that dead weight, constantly pressing and flexing on things, I think that's why, it's the only thing I can think of, is why this I have to adjust more often. Today, started noticing a little pop, and that was because I only heard that because I was addressing another pop that was happening on this bike. But I'm gonna work my way down here. This is a good fork. Shouldn't require any more service on this than any other fork on any other mountain bike. The brakes, though, not only are these gonna be more wearing on your brake pads, but for some reason, this bike, I mean, it could be the hubs that they choose from the factory, and I do have wheels that I'll be upgrading on this, but these have held in there, and I have right at just slightly under 300 miles, and I'll say 285 of the, only about 5 miles have not been on trails, actual trail riding. But you can see the colors there where I've swapped out bolts. I think that one just came out. I had a video, or at least a short, where I talked about the back there. Exactly. When you're out on the trail with your friends, or at least people you know, and your bike starts making noise, and you wonder where it's coming from, and you know it's not the derailleur.
What's that sound?
Yeah, and you start realizing there are only 2 bolts partially holding your rear rotor on. I was down to 2 rotor bolts, and it was moving around. And this one, I started having a vibration that I thought was the headset tension, because I've had to adjust that so many times on this. And a buddy pointed out, no man, it's your rotor, your front rotor has worked loose. So for some reason that has happened on this bike, even though torqued down with Loctite. The only thing I can figure is just the extra stress and or maybe the material, but it hasn't come loose again since the last time that I did it. But I'm just full disclosure here, telling you what I've had to do on this bike. Also, vibrations, if you're a person that doesn't like vibrations, little noises, things tapping on each other, there's just so many wires and cables on an e-mountain bike. Even the best ones that you have the cable managed perfectly on, they're still gonna make a little rattle here and there. It's just the nature of the beast. Have a big battery in there. I'm fortunate that this one doesn't rattle, but a lot of them do. If they did, I would put pads behind that. A little difficult because I can't find where I put the key if I needed to do so on this one. Fortunately, I don't have to, but that's something to factor in. Get down here to the pedals and the crank arms. Tension on the crank arm and the pedal, I'm not any different really than, actually probably less tension on the pedals and the cranks, even though I've worn out 2 sets of pedals on this bike. But different tension on this, I would say, because the motor is doing so much of the work. But the work that motor is doing will put way more stress on the chain than the average rider will do. Someone's gonna comment and go, well, how is that? Because you could stand on the pedals and pump up this same hills. No. With this, I can muscle over anything from a dead stop and pull over it. And that is straight up horrible tension on a chain. And if you're not a KMCE chain, local bike shop manager says, KMCE is the only way to go. I think they call them EX or something like that. But an E-rated KMC chain, e-bike rated KMC chain, is the only way to go. Otherwise, you're just gonna be snapping them. So note that, and that stress also relays from the chain onto the cassette. I'll just let you look at the teeth here. You're gonna wear a cassette out faster on the derailleur, more wearing on that, and that's my new derailleur, this EDS Ox. I'm loving this thing so far. Just made a video on it, and you can see now a little bit of moisture on it. I'm liking it so far. It's working out well. But it's gonna have a lot more stress on this than if I had it on a mechanical bike, a standard pedal bike, than this, the cassette, the front chain ring, all of that having more stress, except for the pedals and the crank arms, I would argue. The rest of it, all way more stress than on a standard bike, just because all that torque coming straight out and relaying straight to all this stuff. Which is why a shift interrupter, which is what this is, this zip tied in place thing is, because up there, I think I still have it. I know I still have it, because testing this new setup, this new wireless shifter, I decided to leave my existing cabling, you know, just in case. I needed, if something happened that didn't work out, I needed to go back. Eventually, if this does work out, I'll probably, you know, actually, because it routes in all of this stuff, I'm probably just gonna leave it here and just leave it hanging like that. But normally, there is a cable going through here that goes to the derailleur and shifts everything, and that is a shift interrupter that you don't have on a standard bike. Because this is a high torque motor, everything going through there, they put a shift interrupt to help take stress off things. I don't have that anymore. So this is getting all the stress now. That's getting all the stress now. This shift interrupter, and I've negated it. How about that? But that does require some maintenance. You need to watch, make sure that that is working on an e-mountain bike. But also, and this is the biggie, and this is really why I decided to make this video last moment here, bad miking and all. Let's get back here to this motor. This is the Bafang M510. The M510 has 95 Newton meters of torque. You've already heard me mention it multiple times. And they make motors that are up to 120 or so, if not maybe even beyond that, which is just crazy considering how much power this one can put out. But these high torque motors stress on the frame and regularly, apparently, have to be tightened down, which is something I wasn't doing. And I started having this pop, this weird pop noise that I couldn't figure out. Just kind of that clunky pop that sounds like if all this was loose. If the pedal was bad, makes a clunk, same clunk. If this arm was loose, kind of this same clunk. If a bearing was bad going through the middle, the same clunk. It turned out to be these motor bolts, multiple that goes through here. And there's another side to this motor. Yeah, here we go, Bafang M510. There's another side here. This cover comes off. And those bolts that I just showed you have nuts that are in strategic places here, and those have to be torqued down regularly, apparently, because what was happening is the motor was shifting slightly in the frame. So as I'm putting heavy pressure on these pedals that are now covered in complete muck here, as I was putting heavy pressure down on these pedals, pedaling, because you still stand to pedal. It's the beauty of a torque drive. You're still doing the work as much or as little as you want, but you're actually still having to do some work. And I regularly stand on the pedals, pedaling up stuff here at the trails, and I now enjoy climbing. The one thing I hated before, I absolutely adore it. On an e-mountain bike, these torque-based, wherever I want to go, I can muscle straight up it thanks to this motor and its siblings and pretty much every, I guess, torque-based mid-drive. Now, we'll say the Hyper, I had that Hyper full suspension torque-based mid-drive, and that only had about 40 Newton meters of torque. And I could, in certain situations, like let's say I'd stopped at that bank there and I wanted to muscle over it, I could create a shudder in the motor where it just didn't have the torque to go over it. This, haven't encountered anything that this has shuddered on yet. Fingers crossed, but it's working so perfectly, so much so that it's torquing its way and flexing. And we discovered today that this was loose and I had to tighten it back up on the frame. And now the pop is gone. So if you're having a pop on your Bafang mid-drive, you need to check that it is tight, and part of that will be taking this side off. This crank arm, this cover, and then their bolts and nuts. The nuts are on this side. Check it because it was wobbling, and well, never had to do that on a regular bike. Sometimes the bottom bracket needs retightened on a standard bike, but in this one it's not the bottom bracket because, well, I guess it is kind of the bottom bracket in a way because the motor is the bottom bracket, but it was the whole motor was working its way loose. Something that e-bike owners, e-mountain bike owners have to tune into because this will be so much stress here on this frame, these high torque motors. And also, obviously, charging your battery properly. Something you have to watch out for if you want a long life of the battery. You know, you can't just charge them to full and leave them sitting there for a month. And you can't leave them depleted sitting there for a month or 2 months or whatever. That will harm the battery. You want to condition, you know, that whole 20-80 thing that people talk about. I do that with this battery, even though today, I think, boot this back up. I think today I charged this up thinking we're going to get to ride. Yeah, I'm at 89% today. So it was yesterday that I charged it up. Charged it up yesterday thinking I was going to get to ride. And I've used it today riding it around, but it's cold outside. And cold sucks the batteries down faster. And you can see the moisture. I mean, I get this out in the weather and have fun with it. And everything works. Just have to tighten down more stuff. And that's the story of this video, that and what this bike was to begin with. A Denago. And got that sticker covering the front. And I actually sanded all this down. And you can't really tell it on camera, but there's, oh, you can right there. Kind of blended well, I think. Where I covered all the, maybe you can see a little better here. That's the factory line there. So it's really hard to see where my work and the factory finish, there's a line right there. My work and the factory finish kind of went together well. Oh, and if you wonder what this is, don't know how well the camera's focusing on it, that is something I have started locally called SOAP, Society of Assisted Pedalers. I'm working on a website for it. I already have stickers. And anyone that rides with me that has an e-mountain bike, kind of give that to them as we're riding and having fun. Not to mention the Stevo star on our night rides. If you ride with us at night, you always get a star. Some people put them on their spokes. We go for the wires. Works perfect on a mountain bike. So if you ride with me, ride at night, you can earn a star. If you have an e-mountain bike, you can earn a SOAP sticker. If you don't have an e-mountain bike, you can earn a KevCentral sticker, which is the one omission that I have on this bike. Why don't I have my own sticker? Miami Fruit, buy fruit from them. Why don't I have my own sticker on this? Vanity, because my stickers are orange and my trim scheme on this is black and red. How about that? How sad is that? That I haven't put my own sticker on here. I'm working on it though. Working on getting some holographic stickers that'll blend in better with any bike color. I've even thought about KevCentral stickers that instead of orange, that I have some that have red, some that have blue, and so on. If you'd be interested in that, comment below. But for now, I'm gonna get back out on the trail before this rain comes down. I think it's slacked off for just these brief seconds here. I'm gonna get in what fun I can get in and ride this thing. And there's my mileage, 291.6. And all but about 5 of that has been trail miles. Holding up well, just requiring some periodic adjustments. Thought I would share that. If you have any questions, comment below. Also know that I am not converting over to full-time e-mountain bike, though I will tell you, these will ruin you. It is so hard to ride these and be able to ride as long as I want to and then get back on a standard bike. But I am getting back on standard bikes, and I do regularly, especially now because there's some stuff coming up that you're definitely gonna want to be tuned in for the 2025 bike season. But that's it for today. Comment below if you have any questions, any thoughts on this. If you have an e-mountain bike, how about your adjustments? You having to torque down your motor because its torque is untorquing it? I'd like to know. Thanks for watching and have a great day.